Aloha and thank you for watching. This is Now. We begin with a live look at our nation's capital, Washington, D.C. There's a lot of news out of our nation's capital today, including a seemingly imminent government shutdown and the passing of a longtime U.S. Senator, Diane Feinstein of California. Remembrances are pouring in her honor.
We'll have more on Senator Feinstein's legacy in just a moment. But first, that last-ditch effort by House Speaker Kevin McCarthy to keep the government open does not have the support needed from his own party, making a shutdown near unavoidable. Nicole Skanga has more details from Capitol Hill.
Alice Silver can smile while she watches her kids play, but that grin fades when she thinks about what's looming.
Times are hard as it is, and a paycheck being missed is a big problem.
Silver's husband is one of more than 1 million members of the military who's facing the prospect of working without pay and potentially choosing between feeding their families or paying their bills. She had a message for members of Congress who will still be receiving paychecks during the shutdown.
Make a decision, get their stuff together and think about us real people who have real problems and real bills to pay.
The House is moving forward on a short-term bill to keep the government open, but far-right Republican members say they'll vote against the bill.
My stance isn't trying to shut the government down, it's trying to shut off the unlimited spending of the federal government's credit cards.
Those same GOP hardliners are threatening to vote out Kevin McCarthy as Speaker of the House, even as he's moved more and more to the right over time to accommodate them, but to no avail.
Members say they only want to vote for individual bills, but they hold me up all summer and won't let me bring individual bills up. Then they say they won't vote for a stopgap measure that keeps government open. So I don't know, where do you go in that scenario? Have you ever seen that?
Hundreds of thousands of federal workers will be furloughed during a shutdown, and millions more, like TSA screeners, will have to work without pay.
People who don't get paid to come into work sometimes don't come into work, even if they're asked to. So getting through an airport could be hard, getting a passport could be hard.
The shutdown takes effect at 12:01 a.m. on Sunday morning. Nicole Skanga, CBS News, Capitol Hill.
On Capitol Hill, lawmakers paused their work to honor Senator Diane Feinstein. The California Democrat was 90, and even her political rivals agreed she was a trailblazer. Erica Brown has more. Reaction from Washington.
I ask that the Senate observe a moment of silence in honor of Senator Diane Feinstein.
The Senate came into session just hours after the news of the death of Diane Feinstein, her desk draped in black as colleagues remembered the California Democrat as a political force and friend.
Senator Diane Feinstein was one of the most amazing people who ever graced the Senate, who ever graced the country.
Diane was a trailblazer in her beloved home state of California, and our entire nation are better for her dogged advocacy and diligent service.
She was my friend. And
tributes poured in from both sides of the aisle. North Carolina Republican Tom Tillis calling her a trailblazer who lived an incredible life, and Florida's Marco Rubio nodding to a historic career of public service.
She cared about her country. She cared about her state. She cared about doing a job, no matter how tough it is, for the future of America, and she did it with dignity and respect every single minute.
Senator Feinstein served in the Senate longer than any woman in American history. She fought hard for a range of liberal priorities, but also had a reputation for finding middle ground with those who disagreed.
She went out.
President Biden worked side by side with the California Democrat for years.
She was a historic figure, trailblazer for women,
and a great friend.
In declining health, Feinstein had already said this would be her last term in office. She died at her home here in Washington, where the flags are at half staff in tribute to a true pioneer. Erica Brown, CBS News, Washington.
A suspected gunman who prompted a lockdown at Schofield Barracks has been captured, but not on Oahu. A viewer shared this cell phone video of a handcuffed Paul Smith being escorted by police out of the Molokai Airport in Ho'olehua. Authorities were looking for him for hours after he allegedly struck a soldier with a gun at Schofield Barracks at around 2:30 yesterday afternoon. The base warned everyone to shelter in place while a SWAT team and canines searched the area. Police were later seen racing in large numbers to Dillingham Airfield, where it's believed Smith caught a flight. But officers were waiting for him when he landed on Molokai at around 8 o'clock last night. The Army has not said if Smith is enlisted or what kind of charges he may face.
A 16-year-old accused of killing 2 people at a chicken fight in Maui in April will be tried as an adult. Shaden Styles Keali'i is charged with first-degree murder, second-degree murder, and attempted murder, along with multiple firearms offenses. Gary and Kathy Rabellisas were killed and 3 others injured. Keali'i is being held on $2 million bail. Another suspect, 23-year-old Jacob Borge, was indicted in April.
The Secretary of the Navy has issued letters of censure to 3 retired naval officers tied to the Red Hill fuel spills in 2021. Rear Admiral Timothy Cott, who was commander of Navy Region Hawaii, failed to inform the public that the Red Hill well had been secured for 4 days. The Navy Secretary also described leadership failures of Rear Admiral Peter Stamatopoulos, who was commander of Naval Supply Systems Command, and Rear Admiral John Korka, who was the Navy Facilities Engineering Commander. The censures go on their records, but the leaders can request a hearing to contest the claims.
Now to Maui, where more Lahaina residents will be able to access their properties in the burn zone. Our Casey Lund has more from the Valley Isle.
Aloha from Wailuku. We're here at the county building where folks will be able to pick up those passes for reentry for those new zones today and tomorrow. Reminder, you have to bring some proof of residency. Lots of different documents can qualify you for that. We have a full list at hawaiinewsnow.com, but we want to talk a little bit about what's different, what the county has learned in that first reentry process. Daryl Oliveira is with us from Maui Emergency Management Agency. This is going to be a much bigger area that we're opening up, correct?
Yes, well over 100 parcels, so about 4 times the size of Zone 1C, and a lot more residents that were in the area at the time. So yeah, we're expecting maybe larger numbers of people and definitely more area to cover.
What have you been and your team been experiencing as these folks go back? We've talked to some of them, and it seems like beyond trying to look for things, some people have found things, but this is more about closure. Is that what you guys are experiencing?
Yeah, closure and that healing process, as I mentioned previously, we've got to see neighbors come together and be very supportive of one another. They hadn't seen each other since the fire, so it's really that healing and closure process for them. As you can imagine, many of these homes were generational homes, where so many stories, so many memories. So coming back now and nothing's there, it's very difficult, but I think it's giving them closure.
The other question that I wanted to cover here is the fact that there are folks that still have their home standing. They're still waiting on water and power. Can you tell us where the response is, in that realm, trying to bring some of those really essential services back to people?
Well, as you mentioned, the utility companies, all of them from HECO to even the county's water and wastewater teams, they're all working very hard to restore infrastructure. Some are going to take longer than others. We know that HECO is working very aggressively to put in infrastructure was lost, poles, etc. Our water and wastewater teams for the county are working very hard trying to get those things restored. Water may take some time, as we saw with the Kula residents, contamination issues in the water, testing ongoing. So that could take some time. Wastewater has shared that they're very close to maybe some solutions that would then allow us to let people back in, because they would be able to then flush toilets and other things. So everyone's doing the best they can, trying to stay ahead of this and catch up and get some infrastructure restored.
Last question, Daryl, and this is just as a human being, not necessarily as an emergency manager, your advice to people that may not have returned to kind of try and, as best they can, mentally prepare for what they may see there.
Yes, that's probably the biggest component of this that worries me is how people will react, how they'll feel coming back, especially those that lost loved ones or have unaccounted for loved ones. To walk out there in that area and just see the level of devastation, nothing's there, can be very traumatic. So I would just encourage people, be prepared for that. Be prepared for the elements. It's very hot. We do have, as you mentioned, mental health professionals on site, healthcare professionals on site. A lot of support, but we're going to give people their space, their privacy. But just really come prepared for what you may not expect to see.
Yeah, and again, as you mentioned, one bright spot is that it is neighbors coming together in their small area. So Daryl Oliveira with us from Maui Emergency Management Agency. Again, a reminder, this is one of 2 locations here at the county building in Wailuku, also the Lahaina Civic Center. And one last note, that all those documents that you may need to prove your residence to get your passes are online at hawaiinewsnow.com. For now, we'll send things back over to Oahu.
The Lahaina Luna football team is set to open the season this weekend. The Lunas face Baldwin on Saturday, and it's sure to be an emotional game for the community that's still healing. Kalchinen has more from the Valley Isle.
Yeah, guys, emotional is an understatement. The Lunas held their final contact practice yesterday at their temporary home digs in Kihei before taking on the Bears here at War Memorial Stadium. The team tells me that the last 2 months have been a roller coaster. After the August 8th fires, they didn't have a town or a school to go to, so football was the furthest thing on their minds. But once the MIL gave them the green light, they were ready to go. The team telling me that they've pushed themselves harder than they ever thought possible, knowing that they represent much more than a football team. As far as the game goes, the Lunas played the winless Bears, but they aren't taking them lightly. Simply put it, Baldwin has in-game experience and they don't. But in the end, they want to show the strength and resiliency that defines Lahaina.
It was very surreal, There's definitely been a lot of emotions, thinking about all our community and all the people that lost to the fire. We just think about them, and that's why we're playing this game, for them. Well, we can't underestimate them. They're a really tough team. They have a lot of talent, and it's going to be a battle. We're just trying to do the best that we can do, play 110% every play, all our hearts.
The coaches also added that they didn't let up on them despite the circumstances. They coached them as they always have, firm but fair. Back out here at War Memorial Stadium, it's going to be a packed house on Saturday. I was told that once tickets were put on sale online, they sold out within minutes. So it's sure to be an emotional roller coaster come game time. Now that kickoff is set for 7 p.m. That's the latest reporting in Wailuku. I'm Kyle Chinen for This Is Now.
HNN Investigates has a special series coming up on fentanyl. For more on this, I spoke with Arlene Kawano. Fentanyl overdoses spiked in Hawaii this year. While that's consistent with other states, we're in a unique situation. Of course, surrounded by water, we're curious how the drug is getting here and what law enforcement is doing about it. Now, Lynn Kawano has a special report airing this Sunday night called Smuggled Fentanyl in Hawaii. She joins us now with a preview. Lynn, in the process of the story, what were you able to find out?
There's a lot of steps. We call it the drug pipeline to paradise. That was the name I used for this. We traveled to the West Coast and then the U.S.-Mexico border. We went to a lot of different places to see the pattern, the pipeline, how fentanyl gets here, where it comes from, and then what law enforcement is trying to do to stop it along the way. There are many different transaction spots. So it was very interesting for us to see. We traveled with Customs and Border Protection, so CBP. We also traveled with the Los Angeles Port Police, DEA, HIDA, the High Intensity Drug Trafficking Areas Program. We went out with a lot of them as they worked to try to stop the drugs, first from coming into the country at the Mexico border, but then also then from leaving California to come to Hawaii. It is a very difficult process, and what I've learned is no matter how much they work at it, some's always going to get through, right? It does. And they do make a lot of stops. They do make a lot of busts. But there's so much fentanyl out there. And in this special report, you'll hear from the agencies why. It's just so easy to make. It's made in a lab, and so they can make a lot of it as much as they want. And therefore, no matter how many times they bust people, there's still going to be more coming in. But it is a very interesting process to see.
Yeah, hard to keep track of for sure. We actually have a clip from your special. Take a look at it.
The Drug Enforcement Administration and HIDTA, the high-intensity drug trafficking areas, combined forces to try to find the major suppliers before the items can be shipped out of LA.
All right, guys, thanks for coming out today.
This is Group 48, a task force of agents.
We got a target that's supposed to come out, originally bring 1,000 pills for $2,500, followed by another 2,000 pills. After he brings out the 2,000 pills, we're going to attempt a takedown, followed by an arrest.
The bus often starts small with buys off social media ads that target kids.
And you'll see more about what happened with that operation in the special report.
Very fascinating, Lynn. Now, we had a mass overdose this summer. 5 Hawaii Island people in Waikiki overdosed in a hotel room, which was alarming and eye-opening. But how widespread is this problem?
You know, that was really a key moment in Hawaii. I don't think that people realized how bad the fentanyl problem was in Hawaii until that happened. It was eye-opening, sad, horrible, tragic. 2 people died in that case, but it made people pay attention to the problem that we're really having. And what I think people really need to understand is this is not just a problem in homeless camps or places where we typically see drug issues and all the things that follow that. This happens in every community. This happens everywhere throughout the state. And it is happening. First responders are going daily to multiple overdose calls. And it's not just in the areas you think they are. So this is one way for you to really understand. This special talks about how it is in different parts of the community. And we interviewed a woman who lost her son, an East Honolulu woman, good family, solid family, and still they were hit by this tragedy.
Heartbreaking indeed. Now, the special report, Smuggled Fentanyl in Hawaii, airs this Sunday night at 8 p.m. on KHNL. But Lynn, that's not all. You also have a series of stories all next week. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so we break down the special into different segments that we can use in the newscast because, you know, you can't fit everything into one story, right? And so we wanted to address all of the topics, all of the pertinent issues that happen and that come with this problem that we're having, this crisis that we're having. And many people say, you know, in Hawaii, we don't have the crisis that other states are having. It's coming. We're delayed a couple of years because we're surrounded by water and things take a little longer to get here, but it is coming and we need to be aware of it and we need people to be prepared and we need to talk about it. We can't ignore this problem. So that's why we are also doing a series, 6 different stories next week, so Monday through Saturday, after the special airs this Sunday.
Lynn Kawano, our chief investigative reporter, with a look at her special report, Smuggled Fentanyl in Hawaii. Again, it airs this Sunday night at 8 p.m. on KHNL. Lynn, thank you so much for all your work.
Of course.
Honolulu Mayor Rick Blangiardi is responding to an ACLU lawsuit over homelessness enforcement. In July, the American Civil Liberties Union sued the city over its sweeps, calling them cruel and unusual punishment. The group is asking the court to block sweeps until more housing and shelters are available. Mayor Blangiardi says the city will vigorously oppose the lawsuit and will defend its enforcement of park closures, laws banning people from sitting or lying on sidewalks, and from storing personal property in public spaces.
So we strongly disagree with the ACLU's contention that the rights of the public to use and enjoy public spaces is subordinate to the rights of the homeless. The public welfare laws that the ACLU seeks to enjoin the city from enforcing enable the city to protect all interests, and we must continue to serve and protect all residents of Oahu.
Mayor Blangiardi also says the city is exploring alternative solutions to homelessness, such as increasing housing inventory and expanding support services. All right, let's take you back live outside to Washington, D.C., where the temperature is 69 degrees and they're about 30 minutes from sunset there on the East Coast. We're going to have an update on that severe flooding in New York, as well as your weekend forecast with Billy V after this quick break.
Happy Aloha Friday. Let's give you your forecast. First of all, the waves. North Shore 2 to 4, West Side 2 to 4. There's going to be a little bit of a north-northwest swell coming up on Sunday. Town spots are 1 to 3, and the east-facing shorelines, that's a trade wind swell, so blown out, kind of sloppy conditions there. Let's go ahead and take a look. Small craft advisories in effect for the highlighted waters due to the strong and gusty trade winds. Here's your forecast for today. Daytime high 89 for Kahului, 88 for Honolulu. Partly sunny skies, windward and Mauka showers drifting leeward at times. We'll see that in the overnight, early morning hours, but we'll also see that in the afternoons. East-northeasterly winds 15 to 20 miles per hour. As we take a look at the 7-day forecast, trade winds Friday through Monday. We'll start to lose the trade winds as we get into Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Real quickly here, Rainbow Warrior football, they are playing over in Las Vegas. It'll be indoors, but here's the forecast for you in case you are traveling over there to Vegas to check it all out. Get the latest on air, online, on your mobile device, and at HawaiiNewsNow.com.
New York Governor Kathy Hochul has declared a state of emergency across New York City because of flooding. Conditions are especially bad in Brooklyn, where a month's worth of rain fell in just 3 hours. Multiple subway lines there are closed. Elsewhere in the city, a terminal at LaGuardia Airport is shut down. The Staten Island Railroad and some northern metro lines are also out of service. The New York Police Department says some roads are also closed. Central Park's weather station observed just under 2 inches of rain in only an hour. That's the second highest hourly rainfall total measured there in 80 years. The state of emergency due to flooding extends to Long Island and the Hudson Valley.
Developing news, Dwayne Davis has now been indicted for murder in the death of Tupac Shakur. The rapper was killed back in 1996, and Davis is one of the last living witnesses and is the uncle of the suspected shooter. He has admitted publicly that he was in the car with his nephew when Shakur was killed in a drive-by shooting near the Las Vegas Strip. The nephew was fatally shot 2 years later in California. Las Vegas police searched a home linked to Davis about 2 months ago.
The United Auto Workers Union is expanding its strike Friday to include 2 additional facilities. It says about 7,000 more members are walking off the job. They're at a Ford plant in Chicago and a GM facility in Lansing, Michigan. The union says it's not including Stellantis in the expansion due to progress in negotiations. UAW says about 25,000 members are now involved in the strike, which started September 15th. The picketing includes 3 largest U.S. automakers for the first time in history. UAW is asking for raises, better benefits, and job protections amid the growth of electric vehicles. Automakers say they can't afford to meet all of the union's demands. And in other economic news, new signs that inflation is cooling. Friday, the Commerce Department released the Personal Consumption Expenditures Index. It's a key way to measure inflation, excluding gas and food prices. The department said inflation rose 3.9% for the year ending in August. That's the lowest annual increase that index has seen in 2 years and is a positive step toward the Federal Reserve's target of 2% inflation. However, the rising cost of energy may continue to put upward pressure on overall inflation. Earlier this month, oil prices surged further after Saudi Arabia and Russia announced plans to extend production cuts.
All right, time for some good news. 2 harpy eagles took flight for the first time as adults 5 years after their rescue in Bolivia. So here they are. Luna and Roke were rescued in 2018. Oh, I didn't know that's what they look like.
Ashley did not see the video for this story.
From an almost deforested area while they were still eaglets. Now, since that time, they were cared for at a wild animal custody center as part of a pilot program to rehabilitate harpy eagles. Now, the pair was released with a satellite monitor to track their migration routes and behavior in the wild for 2 years. And here's some fun facts about harpy eagles. One, they look like that. They build massive nests out of sticks. Get this, Dylan, about the size of a double bed.
That's huge.
Yeah, and it can be 100 to 165 feet from the ground.
And also the feathers on their head that you saw earlier, I read online that they are kind of retractable and they kind of move like owls in some way, shape, or form. But once again, just look at how cute they are.
They do look like an owl. Yes.
Oh my goodness. We needed this on this Aloha Friday.
Oh gosh, they're weird.
Those massive beds, though, can't imagine the size of their nest. We're going to end today with one more live look out at Washington, D.C. We are keeping a close eye on the looming government shutdown. Be sure to stick with Hawaii News Now for the very latest.
Aloha.